Southern Company was just out with results a couple moments ago. Earnings beating the street by 2 cents. Tom Fanning is the company's chairman and CEO. He's also deputy chair of the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. Tom, you're yielding 4.43%. It's hard to move utility stocks for capital gains. But a couple of years ago, I remember a lot of utilities decided to become a little bit of both, a little bit of capital appreciation, a little bit of income. What are you doing with the company to try to actually grow earnings per share, not just to cover the dividend?
Well, listen, we're one of the most capital-intensive industries in the United States. And so what we do with Southern Company is invest in capital, generation, transmission, distribution assets to serve our customers. We're kind of at the end of a long-term cycle in that respect. You know that we're leading the renaissance of nuclear in America. That's a big capital investment. And then we have some other projects along the way. So we're kind of at the end of a CapEx cycle right now. It'll be interesting.
You also know about input costs for power, and you'll get it wherever you can get it cheapest, I guess, for your customers. What has happened in your view in the last year or so with oil prices and energy costs? Has it been because of a weak global economy, or has it been because we're increasing the supply with all these efforts for bringing new sources on stream?
You know, Joe, I think it's a little bit of both. The United States is in a position that neither you nor I have been in, and probably our parents have been in our lifetimes. We have the ability as a nation to promote energy security. That is not independence, but effectively a net exporter. And so I think the supply side of the equation with oil, natural gas, and coal is something that can serve this country so well for so long. And I think, in essence, give people a dividend in terms of their household income growth.
Pretty funny. So for 6 years, all we've heard about is renewables. What were those three things you mentioned? None of those things were emphasized by the government, the current government, or the White House at least. Which ones? They were all horrible things you said. What were they again? Natural gas, coal, and oil?
Sure.
Filthy, dirty
I think
carbon. Huh? Go ahead.
But, Joe, I think the issue here is that could put America in a position where energy security breeds national security, breeds economic security. That's what we need in America today.
Right. My point is that those that backers of the government where we are now will take credit. They have no shame in actually taking credit for the energy renaissance here, as if they've greased the skids or somehow made it a better environment to operate in, when in fact everything that's been accomplished has been in spite of the efforts of the current administration.
Well, as CEO of one of the leading energy companies in America, I really don't
regulate the hell
care.
out of you. They'll do something to you, or you'll get audited personally. Anyway, Lois Lerner will be
Joe,
yeah,
I don't care who don't care who gets the credit. Okay. Let's make sure that we do the right thing for the economy and get us going again. We can do better than we're doing now.
Tom, here's a question for you. You've placed lots of different bets on all sorts of different energy streams. And I want to understand, now that we have the price of oil where it is, how it's going to change the economics of those businesses and your investments in those businesses over the next several years. And what I'm talking about, of course, is wind and solar and all of these new energy initiatives.
Sure. So oil has almost nothing to do with our business. It has to do with the consumptive power of the customers we're privileged to serve. When I think about the generating resources, the full portfolio, all the above, whatever you want to call it, it's new nuclear, it's 21st century coal, it's natural gas, it's renewables, energy efficiency. You ask about renewables. They are growing. I have always been a particular fan of solar. Wind is applicable in other places in the United States, not necessarily in the Southeast. So solar, I think, is what matters to us. And we just announced another deal here recently.
Yeah.
My sense is that's going to continue to grow. When you think about everything that we have either invested in or procured, it represents about 4% of our generating capacity. Now, that's still a big number. Southern Company, from an energy production standpoint, is a little bit smaller, but similar in size to the nation of Australia. Right. So it's making inroads, but it's still not as big as everything else.
You got to do it, but I'll bet you it's worth less than what you paid for it. But that's okay. You don't have to market, do you? How about, did you say this, the The market does not expect QE to expire. So you don't think there will, that's wrong.
No,
Isn't it? You expect QE to expire. You don't think that the market knows it's coming. So that's a mistake, I think, right?
Yeah, and I'm speaking on my behalf, right? My opinion here, not in my role at the Fed. But yeah, I think the market's fully discounted that. I think the more interesting question is, what do we do with interest rates? You know, I've said this before on the show that I think the most overwrought statistic in America is unemployment. When you consider a lot of the jobs that are being created today are the lower paying variety. We have more part-time labor, more disaffected labor. Therefore, household incomes aren't growing, and therefore we tend to overshoot GDP growth. We expect this year in the Southeast about 2.2%. Here again, I think we can do better. When you consider monetary policy and the effect of slower growth, my sense is they're likely to keep interest rates lower for a longer time.
You think we'll have if you had to guess, and you don't need to speak as your Fed guy, but when will the next round of QE be? A year, 5 years, 20 years, 50 years? You got any idea?
Impossible to speculate on that. It's a
Wouldn't
tool.
surprise you, though. It's still around if we need it.
It's an arrow in the quiver.
It's the only arrow we have now, but at zero. But okay, so you don't know.
Well, the real arrow in the quiver is get the economy growing again.
Right.
That's what we got to do. And
right.
so
right.
that's the long-term
Well, we
deal.
might have to address some structural issues at that point, or you know, there's things that we probably would need to do and we're not probably. Are you optimistic after this election we're going to do anything?
You know, I guess as a rule, I have to be optimistic. We always have to. And you know our company is active in Washington. We've got to push for the right policies for America. I think energy is a way to play offense in otherwise this challenged environment. I think energy and I think tax reform are two areas where you can get bipartisan support.
What about energy, Tom? What specifically? A lot of times that's code for making sure that the pipelines get passed. What do you mean?
Well, if anybody wants to see my full position on this, they can go to YouTube or whatever. But it is the notion of energy security. Taking advantage of the blessings of natural resources that this country has, I think can put us in a different position, give us an unassailable advantage to grow manufacturing, grow jobs, grow personal incomes, make American lives better.
Boy, it's not progressive.
And all we've got to do is...
It's not.
But all we got to
against
do
the progressive agenda. It's not. You're barking up the wrong neck of the woods there, Tom. You're not saying the right thing.
I think at the end of the day, Joe, I think we can get bipartisan support to continue to move in this direction. And I think particularly in the Senate and in the House, I think we can get people to agree.
Well, and maybe in the Senate and the House, because they're going to both go Republican, but we're still going to have a Democrat in the White House.
At the end of the day, I think for the good of the economy, I think people will do the right thing. At least that's what we've got to put in front of them all the time.
Well, we can always hope. Thank you, Tom Fanning. We appreciate it. See you later.
Great being with you.
Hope springs eternal.